Welcome to another live episode of the Pit Press Podcast. My name is Ryan Tamori. Exciting time of year. Can you feel the madness? Terrible pun there. Or as my friend Steven says, especially with the new Ghostbusters movie coming out, busted makes you feel good. So your bracket isn't busted yet. We're going live. I know it's an odd time, but we wanted to get our next guest on, so we're happy to have him. Before I introduce the panel, I have to thank those that make the show possible. Affordable Solar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Hey, if you're looking for a place to watch some basketball, there was baseball this morning. It was fantastic. NHL, everything is March Madness. NHL, NBA playoffs are right around the corner. Spring training is winding up unless you want to wake up at 4 a.m. Mountain Standard Time or Mountain Time. I wasn't doing that today. And Abrazo Homes. We appreciate them for making this possible. Joining me right now is some of the gang, some of the usual suspects all the way from the Bay Area. A two-time offensive state lineman for the one, the only San Juan Mendoza at St. Pius X High School, and play for Damian Segura, Mr. Richard Thompson. Rick, how you doing?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm glad to be here, ready to watch some basketball the next few days and chop it up here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. And as always, I'm joined by at NM Sports Capper, Mr. Jacob Neff. Get your thoughts on that game last night here in a minute. And the first session of the first four. How you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing good, man. Ready to break down some more college basketball before we hop into the madness of the season.
I already got a comment that says Ryan lose the Rutgers shirt. My dad got his master's degree from there. My parents grew up in the town over. Yeah, I didn't go there, but I lived close to there. And the Pit is better than the Rack or Jersey Mike's Arena right now, even though it's still cool to go there. Joining us, he's on his way to Pittsburgh to see his South Carolina Gamecocks play. He runs on Twitter at @mid_madness. It's mid-major madness. His name is Nick Lorensen. Nick, thank you for joining us. How you doing, man?
Good, Ryan. I always love hopping on here. I know you mentioned baseball a little bit. I was up nice and early this morning, a couple hours of sleep to watch that Dodgers-Padres game. I love baseball as much as I love college basketball. You mentioned I'm going up to Pittsburgh right now, see the Gamecocks. The mid-majors in Pittsburgh aren't all that amazing. There's only two. We got Akron and we got Oakland. I love Greg Campy, so that'll be fun to watch. I've never seen John Gross coach before, but I've heard that he's as intense as Pat Kelsey on the sideline. So I'm excited to see that. But, yeah, it's the best time of year. We're going to talk about it a little bit. I think the Mountain West got screwed with its seeding, and it showed last night with just Colorado State taking Virginia to the woodshed.
Well, that's my first question to you, and then I'm going to get our thoughts on it. Everything I'm reading, like Virginia lost, I think 7 of its 10 last games. They lost 5 of them by double digits. They had a couple 30-point blowouts this year. It's not like Tony Bennett is a bad coach. Tony Bennett is a phenomenal head coach. He won a national title within the last 5 years. Ryan Dunn's a great player. I'm trying to think of the white guy's the shooter name. Neff. It's McNeely. I'm having a brain fart.
Yeah, McNeely.
Yeah, he's a good player. They just couldn't throw a ball in the ocean. And they looked bad against that final stretch there against NC State in the ACC tournament was bad. But you love your mid-major basketball. What did you make of that game last night?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you mentioned I love my mid-major basketball, so I haven't watched like all too much of Virginia this year, but I work at Queens. I'm on staff at Queens, and one of our assistant coaches is one of the better Virginia guards over the last 20 years, Shara Reynolds. So I'll always talk to him about UVA. For weeks, he's like, Nick, I don't understand why you're so high on them. They suck. They suck. They suck. And he just keeps saying it over and over again, no matter what they do. Last night, that proves it to me. It was 51 minutes. They didn't hit a field goal. 51 minutes of real time. So I know halftime was in there and all that, but that's still 51 minutes without seeing the ball go in the basket. Colorado State wasn't amazing offensively either. I know Joel Scott got a double-double. He had a really good game, but this Virginia team did not deserve to be in the tournament. People have been saying it for the last week and a half that they didn't deserve to be in the tournament. You got a team like Pitt. I know Pitt played absolutely no one in non-conference. They should be playing Duquesne every year. 348th ranked non-conference schedule in the country. But at least they showed signs. they went to the semifinals of the ACC tournament and they battled a good UNC team. It was the number 1 seed, and they're going to be playing Wagner, who won last night as well. And you also have a team like Indiana State, who just absolutely rolled through the season, and they are 1 seed in the NIT now. They have 2 great players. I can't remember that guard's name. I don't know why. Isaiah Slope, and then they got Robbie Avila, who everyone knows. They call him Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Nerd, all those names. But, like, there were so many more deserving teams. I did not think Colorado State nor Boise State should have been in a playing game. I know that obviously the seeding was bumped down a little bit, and it would have made sense for them both to be 10 seeds, but I don't think they should have been playing teams. You had Colorado State, who absolutely smoked Creighton in the non-conference, and then Boise State, who played a super tough non-conference. They were in South Carolina for like 2 weeks, and they tested themselves. And Mountain West has been one of the best leagues in the country. And another thing with this is, like, the Mountain West had what? There's 6 teams in the tournament. There's a chance that there were 7 if UNLV were to do something. ACC only had 3 teams. ACC only had 3 teams in the tournament. It's showing the Mountain West is for real. Hopefully Boise State's going to be able to show that tonight. New Mexico in a couple of days against a Clemson team that's going to up and down. So I just think last night really showed, Colorado State, Mountain West is the real deal. And it was a complete head scratch why Virginia should have even been in the NCAA tournament.
Jacob, I'm going to roll over to you and your thoughts on that. And Nick, I'm going to put you on mute just for a little bit, but feel free to chime in at any time.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that was hard to watch yesterday. I think I made a tweet last night. It was at one point Colorado State like 34, and I put YMCA youth 8-9-year-old basketball team like 14 or whatever it was. I mean, it was really bad. They couldn't throw a ball in the ocean, like you said. Their shot selection basically just comes down to the last 5 seconds of the shot clock, and it's most of the time it's forced. They have open shots that they pass up. I don't know if it's intentionally to, continue to run their style of offense, which is, kill the clock as much as you can. Air Force was the slowest team as far as draining the shot clock this year. I think they were at like 20.3 seconds. The last 3 games before last night, Virginia had surpassed that in their last 3 games. They were averaging like 21.2, 21.3, and like 21.1 in their 3 games before last night. And I think it might have even increased after last night because it didn't seem like any shot ever went up before, the last 5 seconds of the shot clock until they actually had to have somewhat of a pep in their step and try and, put some baskets up because they were down by so much. As Nick said, I know people have been talking about Pitt, and I know people had said stuff about Providence. They lost last night. Devin Carter didn't play, so you can't really put too much into that. But I would have loved to have seen a team like Indiana State play last night because that would have just made much more of a stylistic matchup to Indiana State and Colorado State. Another thing is I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, Colorado State looked like they shouldn't have been either." Well, that's just the brand of basketball Virginia plays. Nobody's ever going to look great against them because they play such good defense. But they did what they had to do to win, which is not go on long scoring droughts, be effective on offense. And another thing last night is Isaiah Stevens only had 5 points. He had 3 turnovers. I think he had 5 rebounds, 4 assists. It was a very average night for Isaiah Stevens. I'm not quite sure he's over his calf injury that we saw in the Mountain West Conference tournament. I'm not sure if that's affecting him still, but he was still effective enough to distribute the ball. And they didn't really get much out of him. So I thought Colorado State played pretty good last night. But yeah, I was glad that they had a front row seat, and the commissioner of the committee, had a front row seat to watch that terrible selection of Virginia last night because you could see when they showed him a couple times his face, it was almost in disbelief of how bad it was. But for them to think that team deserved to play a game in the NCAA tournament was pretty baffling to me, and it was atrocious to watch.
Nick, I'm going to go to Rick real quick and get his thoughts on the basketball game, and then we'll rotate back to you. Just an FYI.
Yeah, just huge games by Cartier, Clifford stepping in the place of Stevens, not scoring a lot, and huge game from Joel Scott. I don't think he had such an effective game in the Mountain West Conference tournament as he did last night. 11 rebounds, 23 points. So I just want everybody to kind of pump the brakes on the Mountain West Conference being the all and mighty after one game. It was kind of funny rubbing it in the ACC's face last night on Twitter. There's still a lot of tough matchups ahead, and I think it's just I love the energy behind the Mountain West fans. If you see, all the teams are bonding together for one common cause, and that's to make the Mountain West look good. And I'm all for it, but let's take it one step at a time.
I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, it's there's a lot of argument. There was more argument I saw on the interwebs of on the artist formerly known as Twitter, where it was anti-Virginia rhetoric. There were a couple people that were defending them. Again, it's probably love for the fact that's my conspiracy theory, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Virginia was blown out 7 times over it's Lionel Hutz's alias joining us again. Virginia was blown out 7 times over the regular season and was in the tournament with UNM bumping them to the play-in. SC clearly stating that a P5 Q1 loss was worth more than a Mountain West Q1 win. Yeah, I don't buy that. Nick, I'm going back to you because of the seeding, and you had already said it was atrocious, but what was your overall thought with the seeding?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw both Boise and Colorado in the playing game, I was like, what the hell? And Leon Rice was the same way. You know, he was baffled. The whole team was baffled, if you've seen video of that. But hopefully they're going to be able to prove tonight that, you know, the Mountain West wasn't a fluke this year. It's still only been San Diego State who's been able to pick up wins over the last couple of years in the NCAA tournament. So they really do have a lot to prove. I mean, another thing, like, you know, I've been high on New Mexico all year. I hopped on here in October and told you guys that they were a dark horse Final Four team. I have them in my Final Four. I think they have a path to do it if they're able to get past Clemson here. But I think they're better than 11. I think that they're maybe a 10. I think they're better than Boise State. It's just, I mean, like, it's almost like non-conference scheduling and non-conference wins matter for some people. They don't matter for others. They're just way too inconsistent with all this stuff. So the net ranking doesn't matter at all. Kind of going off on a tangent here, you know, Indiana State's the highest ranked net team to never make the NCAA tournament at 29. There's like, I would like a more consistent, like, hey, this is what you need to do to get in the NCAA tournament, because we haven't had that. No one's ever been able to say, you got to do this, this, and this to get in. And it's a whirlwind every selection Sunday on who's going to get in and where they're ranked these last couple of years.
I think that they should limit probably at larges. I think if you win your it's such, we kind of have this discussion every year, but I think it's a disgrace because the Missouri Valley Conference was pretty good. Bradley was good. Northern Iowa was always pretty good. This Drake team with DeVeers is really good. I think even if you win your outright regular season, like even if you tie, I remember when I was in college, UNM had a 3-way tie with BYU, Utah in 2009, and they missed the NCAA tournament. It was mind-boggling. Now they lost to Wyoming in the first round of the Mountain West Conference tournament that year. That didn't help them, but you know, Indiana State won that conference outright. Utah State wins this conference outright as an 8-9 seed, an 8-9 matchup. I don't really, you know, doesn't matter to me if you're 8 or 9 at that point. I don't know. I just think it's a little bit of a, I think you're right there, Nick. We need to figure out how how there's a curriculum. Even the football committee has that. New Mexico just has to figure out a way to upgrade its non-conference schedule. Limit at large bids. Be careful what you hope for. Yeah, you're probably right there. But I would say there's got to be some kind of criteria that gets you in. I would think if you win your regular season, that helps. You're almost giving favor or acknowledging the hottest team, which has happened. I mean, look at Georgia Tech like 2 or 3 years ago. They got hot, and I think I oust in the first round. And the best nickname, Jake, Grand Theft Alvarado, Jose Alvarado led him to an ACC title. But Nick, I wanted to ask you your thoughts. Is Boise State capable of beating Colorado tonight?
Yeah, I think they are. The thing about Colorado is their size is pretty good, but I think they're capable. I think they're only a 1.5 dog in Vegas, so they're giving them a chance out there. Every year, though, I feel that way with Boise State when they go to the NCAA tournament. Hey, they have a chance to finally do it this year. They have experience. They have guys that can do different things, make shots. They're one of those teams where on any given night, a different guy can go off, so it can kind of catch you off guard. So, I mean, I'm always overly optimistic on Boise State. I also don't know how I just passed up on the Utah State thing. They dominated. They lost to Bradley in non-conference, and they won the Mountain West, which was one of the best leagues in the country, outright. That's all. They should have not been an 8 seed. I think they're looking way too much into the offseason, how they lost everyone, how this is a completely new team. And people have been looking at that all year. They should have been a 6 seed. I think 8 seeds just absolutely wild, disrespectful to the league. Even though the league has 6 bids, you got to give an outright regular season champion who had a really, really strong non-conference and overcoming the scenarios they did. I know I just mentioned that they shouldn't be looking at that, but I think they're looking too much into it. They deserve more than an 8 seed.
I agree with you there. I kind of the rhetoric, I'm not going to take away they won. I felt like they got a little bit lucky in some games this year. But they've got phenomenal players in Darius Brown and obviously great Osabor, Ian Martinez, and Danny Sprinkle did. I mean, to have 0-0 returning is a phenomenal job. Neff, I'm going to go to you. By the way, Nick, according to Caesar Sportsbook, it's jumped up. Colorado's a 3-point favorite now.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's that. I'm going to, Jacob, your thoughts on tonight's game.
It's going to be a tougher game than last night. That's for sure. A lot of people don't know, if you don't follow college basketball very closely or other conferences, Colorado has potentially 3 first-round picks in the NBA draft upcoming. KJ Simpson is a great guard. He can shoot the ball great from 3-point range, 45%, averages almost 20 on the season. Shoots his free throws well. Tristan Da Silva's a guy that can take the ball off the bounce. He's a big, he's a bigger, he plays bigger than what his size is, but he's athletic. He can take it off the bounce. He can spot up and shoot threes. He can post up. He can take you to the basket. He averages 15 point a game. He shoots 37% from 3-point range. He shoots 83% from the free throw line. And then this guy's probably the undercard on their team, and he might be getting the most love in the NBA draft, and that's Cody Williams. He's a forward, athletic, takes it off the bounce, can spot up and shoot. He averages almost 13 points a game, and then shoots 56% from the field, which is super effective, and 42% from downtown. So Boise's going to have their hands full tonight, that's for sure. Not another person that you can watch. He's had a lot of trouble with fouls this year is Eddie Lampkin Jr. He's a transfer from TCU. He's a beast down low. He could give them a little bit of a fit because he likes to get boards down low, put them back up. He's physical, but he also has a tendency to get into foul trouble by being a little more aggressive than he should be down low. But this is going to be more of a test for the Mountain West tonight. I know that we were all promoting the 1-0 Mountain West record. Like Rick was saying, maybe we should all pump the brakes a little bit. This is going to be our first test because Colorado is definitely a better team than Virginia, has a lot more talent than Virginia. So we'll get our first look tonight at how the Mountain West goes up against some of these bigger conferences. But I do think that they have the ability to match up with them in certain areas where I get very nervous for Boise State. And like I said, they didn't deserve to play this game, so it's not their fault. I mean, they got ultra screwed. If they wanted, I think Boise State was the better team than Colorado State. I think that Boise State should have played Virginia last night if you were going to put Boise State in the play-in game, and Colorado State should have probably gotten Colorado, but I'm sure they didn't do that for the geographical metrics of it. But Boise State got ultra screwed, play-in game, and then the harder of the play-in games. But my concern with Boise is the point guard position. Robbie Anderson has not been what he was supposed to be this year. Obviously, the transfer from UC San Diego, he's struggled mightily. And Cody, with KJ Simpson being their primary player on offense, he's going to have his hands full tonight, and he's also going to have to make sure that he can distribute the ball and carry somewhat of an offensive game too. So I think Boise's got their hands full tonight, but I'm hoping that they can prevail and show why the Mountain West was underseeded in this game.
Rick, I'm going to go to you. You've watched Boise State. I don't know if you've watched Colorado, but with kind of piggybacking off what Neff said there, how do you see Boise State winning this game maybe?
I think they got to forget about the seeding thing now and just move forward and, focus on this. And obviously they probably have been the last few days. I think it's going to come down to their leaders of Degenhardt and Rice having big games, but also Stanley. Omar Stanley to me is one of the best underrated players in the conference, but he's kind of up and down. He's capable of getting, 15, 16 points, or he could have 6. So I think, like Jacob's mentioning, they don't have someone that distributes the ball really well on Boise. So if these long athletic players of Colorado start to bother them on defense, it'll be interesting to see if Boise can keep pace in the game and keep scoring. But I think Ogbo can match up with their wings. He's capable of shooting the 3 and also is a good defender. So I'm excited to see his matchup with some of these Colorado players, and because I think he's capable of keeping up with them. And I guess just going back to the seeding, if we look at Boise compared to San Diego State, they both had some good out-of-conference wins, and then in conference almost had the same record, I believe. Boise maybe had one more win or two, but when we're looking at the seed, I think now we have to consider that there is obviously a historical factor with San Diego State being the only team to win a tournament game since 2018. And when we look at some of the other selections, such as Michigan State, maybe some of the seedings, Kansas, I don't know if they deserve such a high seed. Now we have to just realize that history and prestige do play a part in the seed, and as long as we know that, then okay, we can accept that when these guys go in the room, there's a respect factor that also comes into it. And those are just my thoughts for tonight.
No, I agree, and I'm not like a full-blown conspiracy theorist. I really truly believe that when it comes to this, there is a reason. As I've mentioned, I've used UNM as an example. 2013, you're a 3 seed. You have, as Ed always says, people like Charles Barkley picking you to go to the Final Four. They lose to Harvard, then they get a Stanford as a 10 seed. They're a 7 seed, they're a 10 seed. They lose to Stanford. So again, the last 2 times UNM has been in the tournament, it's been a decade. They've lost, as I said, to the Smock kids. But to go back to Nick, though, I wanted your thoughts. Where did you feel San Diego State should have been seated? And then I think Matt Norlander of CBS Sports came out and said, well, they just purposely reseeded BYU and San Diego State because BYU cannot play on Sundays. So there's a little bit of that's why did the committee not take that into effect? But I wanted your thoughts on where San Diego State was seated.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the whole season they've been getting a little bit more respect from the national media because of what they did last year. There really is a historical factor there. Right? 5 seed. Now, I know like their defense is good. I don't think they were as good as they were last year, and they don't have as much talent as they do. I think maybe 6, 7 would have made more sense, which is obviously they would have been the 6 if there wasn't a Sunday thing for BYU. Completely non-Mountain West thing too. I just think that was super lazy from the selection committee, and we see with San Diego State here, with Duquesne being an 11 seed. Like I'm the biggest Duquesne homer ever, but people all Saturday, Sunday. If Duquesne makes it, what seed do you think they'll be? 12, 13. I just think they straight up said, whoever wins the A-10 tournament, let's give them the 11 seed. They're going to play BYU. So I think they're super. They're going to say, oh, we spent countless hours in the room last week and we watched all these games. There's a big historical factor. You know, like when you were growing up, you had those things where you kept tally of how many books you read. I feel like we should do that for the selection committee. They need to keep tally of how many hours they watch of certain teams. Like, it just doesn't make much sense to me how, you know, San Diego State's a 5 and they really weren't all that amazing this year. They struggled and played a lot of close games against a couple teams at the bottom of the league. I know, like, I believe San Jose State was a real battle for them. There's just a major historical factor there. I think we should do that, like, book thing, you know, where you got free pizza at Pizza Hut. So that would help out a little bit there.
Rick, I looked right at you. He said pizza.
I'm glad they did that on all parts of the country, because I was definitely pretending to read books so I could go to Pizza Hut.
When Pizza Hut still had the Street Fighter 2 game and, you know, the hut and those ugly plastic cups, and you had like the salad bar and the buffet. Yes, now we're starting to show our age.
This is I'm glad, you know, Nick made that point, because it's totally obvious that a lot of these people don't watch Mountain West games. They don't watch West Coast games because their last bracket update is always at the end of the night. And like in some cases, the last Mountain West game hasn't started or the last Pac-12 game hasn't started. And then they're like, oh, we'll update it in the morning when we get on and see the results. Well, you didn't even get to watch the game to see how it transpired, what happened. And I think that that's a major issue. And then, you know, I heard the committee say, oh, we stayed up till 2 a.m. to watch some of these games and then reconvened on.
Drinking and partying? Like, what the fuck are you
doing?
Sorry,
I just don't believe it, because if you saw, and this is not me just trying to be a homer for UNM, obviously, with us being graduates of there and covering them, if you watch them in the Mountain West Conference tournament, there is no way that you saw them as an 11 seed and could compare them to some of these 11 seeds in the tournament. I just think it's insane. But yeah, maybe Nick's onto something there. Let's start offering some free pizza for watching some late night college basketball on the West Coast.
I mean, Nick, I have to ask you, who would you take head to head between Duquesne and UNM?
I mean, that's a tough one. New Mexico, I mean, I think the New Mexico big men are better, but I honestly think Duquesne is the second best backcourt tandem in mid-major basketball behind New Mexico. So they could compete with them there. The only difference is I think, you know, Mashburn and House, if everything goes right, those two can play together and they can both score like 20, 30 points. With Day Grant and Jimmy Clark, it's one or the other. So, I mean, I got to go with New Mexico. I mean, I'm super high on New Mexico. I got New Mexico in the Final Four. I got Duquesne beating BYU, losing to Illinois. I got Drake in the Sweet 16. So, I mean, that just shows how much love I really have for this New Mexico team. I really, like, I've stuck to my point all year. They kind of hit a little lull, but last week they just showed they were the best team in the league. They have the most talent. You know, if Jalen House is able to, he had all that talk last week, able to carry that over into this week, play with the same kind of momentum and energy that he did. I really do think the sky's the limit for this squad.
I was going to ask you about some other mid majors. I know we've got a little bit more time with you, but since you brought up New Mexico, I mean, do you have them in the Final Four? What is the key to them against Clemson? This Clemson team is up and down. We know they have PJ Hall. He's a good center, but we have a lot of what Jacob brought up last night was this Virginia team beat Clemson. I mean, you can do that whole rotating thing. I don't like to do that, but I mean, how do you, just for continuity and what is on the horizon, how do you see them beating this Clemson team, and what do you know about Clemson?
Yeah, I mean, we played Clemson this year at Queens, so It was right before Christmas. They scored so many points on us in the first half. I mean, we just didn't play defense all year, but they scored like 60 points in the first half, dropped like 110, I think. But obviously, they have so many big men they can change in and out. I think it's pretty even, though. I think New Mexico big men are very, very solid, and they'd be able to kind of control them there. I think the real key factor in this game is Joe Girard. If you're able to shut him down, he's one of the main inconsistencies on this team. But he has the capability to drop 25, 30 points in any given game. He's played a whole bunch of big games before. He's obviously going to probably be the guy for this Clemson team in this game because they know that he has that experience. They know that he can hit shots. The ball will be in his hands. But I think that's the real difference. It's just you got to lock in on the defensive end in the backcourt because I think there's a chance that Nelly Jr. Joseph can shut down PJ Hall if he's just it's going to come on the defensive end if you can just lock in on defense there.
I think, in my opinion, what better matchup to have on Joseph Girard is Jalen House running around with him on the defensive end. This guy struggles with athletic point guards. He struggles on the defensive end guarding anybody with speed. He's a great shooter, but I think that the key is going to be Jalen House sticks on him running off all those screens. And they're going to have to figure out if Dent is going to guard Chase Hunter. And I think that, just with that matchup itself, if this team can get out and run against Clemson, it's not going to fare well for them. They're going to want to try and pound it inside, I think, against us, get our guys in foul trouble. They know that we have a little bit of problem with depth on the bigs on this team. But if we could get out and run with them, I think that that's the counterpoint to what Clemson's going to want to do. And Clemson hasn't been playing their best basketball. I mean, let's just be honest. Their best basketball was probably at the beginning of the year, to the mid part of the year. They've fallen off a little bit. And yeah, I made that comment last night, and I don't like to play that game where it's like, hey, this team lost to this team at this point in the season. But it was at home, and Virginia beat them by 1. So they're beatable.
Rick, when you hear that, your basketball knowledge, just wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Girard has made 2 or more threes in 17 straight games, so he's going to make some threes. I think where it's going to come down to is that we know New Mexico's strength is getting the ball in the paint, scoring in the paint, with Dent getting to the rim or dishing it off on the pick and roll or finding a cutter. And that's where they really excel, not a great three-point shooting, as we've seen and know. And one thing about Clemson is, surprisingly, overall on defense, they're not rated very high, but they are good at defending in the paint. I just heard somebody on one of these ESPN bet shows they're one of the top 10 teams defending, I believe, in the paint or restricted zone, and we can fact check that here. So to me, that means they're ready to counter New Mexico's attack and make them shoot from the outside. And sometimes, as we know, the Lobos like to shoot that outside shot without moving the ball around, usually Mash or House shooting early in the shot clock, which can cause the other team to get out on the run. So I think foul trouble for the Lobos will be important, like Nick hit on, and Jake, if the bigs can play solid D against PJ Hall, I think that's going to take Clemson out of their offense. But if Nelly or JT top and pick up 2 fouls early in the first half, and Amzil has to battle down there for longer than we like, or even Mushila or someone of that caliber, it's going to be a longer day for the Lobos. But I still like UNM. I just think that they're going to have to find other ways to counter the defensive attack of Clemson.
Nick, I'm going to you because some of your thoughts on key players from mid-major basketball around the country. The first name that pops to my mind, this Robert Ford, the third kid from Montana State, and the kid from Grand Canyon is slipping my mind with the 2 names. Jacob, what's his name?
Foster Grant. Or
Foster, yeah. I knew it was an F.
Grant Foster.
Grant Foster. I mean, I'm excited for the Montana State game today. This is their 3rd straight trip. Obviously, Daniel Sprinkle. So I'm starting there because Robert Ford III had a great Big Sky tournament, but Are there any other mid-major players? I'm thinking about all the guys from St. Mary's. I'm thinking about Ryan Nemhard. It's so I don't know. I'm rambling, but I think about certain players. It's like we know Gonzaga nationally. I know they play in a mid-major, but we know what Mark Few has done there. So I'm thinking about Watson. I'm thinking about Graham Ike, Ryan Nemhard, Aiden Mahaney. I'm thinking about all the West Coast Conference guys. But who are some of the players that you want the casual college basketball fan to see this weekend?
Yeah. So first of all, I heard the name JT Top, and I don't know why I hadn't thought of him earlier. I saw a post earlier today. Rico Bosco and I kind of like going back and forth and busting each other's balls on social media. He posted.
Are you a Rico rider?
I don't know if I could say I'm a rider.
Ah, gotcha.
We're cordial.
We're
cordial.
That's good. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Go ahead, man.
But he said JT's Obi's brother. What is he like? Is he like, is Google not an option there? Like, I don't. That's such a casual, like, just look at the name. Oh, they're brothers. No, they aren't. But
no.
No,
they're not. We would have known that. Trust me.
Yeah, I know. We would have heard that nonstop. But I'm looking at Pittsburgh since I'm going there right now. Oakland plays Kentucky at 7:00 tomorrow. Two names to watch out for. They're Jack Golke. I don't think he's taken more than 15 2-point shots all year. Every couple years, Greg Campy gets these guys where all they do is shoot 3-pointers, and he's that guy this year for Oakland. So if he's able to hit a good amount of threes, there's a chance maybe they could hang in there with that young Kentucky team. You also have Trey Townsend on that team, who won Horizon League Player of the Year. He's been a double-double machine. He grew up an Oakland fan. His mom played for Oakland women's basketball. Greg Campy was able to get him back into town. He's adored there. He'll be a really fun watch. And the other game there is Akron. They have Aaliyah Lee, who was at Butler, I believe, last year. I always get it mixed up between Butler and Illinois, but I believe it was Butler. But he was Player of the Year a couple years ago in the MAC. He's back to averaging about 20 points per game. He can put up a lot of shots. And, I think Illinois is obviously a great team. I have them going quite a bit. But they could have their troubles down low with Enrique Freeman, who's back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year, I believe, in the MAC. He was a walk-on his freshman year. He got a couple minutes in their first game as a freshman. He really impressed, and he's been a double-double machine since. I believe he's top 3 in the country in double-doubles. He went from a walk-on to one of the best big men in the country. We get that quite often in the MAC for whatever reason. So you have them there. Let me do some thinking. 16 seeds, 15 seeds, 14 seeds. Just run through the leagues. Hey, son, I don't really think Stetson has a great chance to beat UConn because they're the best team in the country. But you have Jalen Blackman there, who's one of the top scorers in the country. He dropped 43, I believe, in the title game there against Austin Peay. He's a handful. You mentioned Tyon Grant Foster. That team's electric. Shahada Wells, he stayed as a couple guys on that team. Christian Shoemate's one of the best dunkers. Every year, I feel like in the Southland, we have this kid who can just put up highlight reel dunks every night. In the last couple of years, we haven't been able to get that in the NCAA tournament. But Christian Shoemate will be able to do that this year because they're obviously an NCAA tournament. They have a Gonzaga team that many people think they can upset. I'm not all too bullish on that, but he'll be a fun watch. The St. Mary's guys, they're great. Patriot League with Colgate. Jeff Woodward's a really, really strong big man who I think just keeps getting better for them. Riley Minix at Morehead State. I don't really think they have a chance in their first game. I don't remember who they played, but their only losses in non-conference were to really good teams. But he kind of came out of oblivion, and Preston Spradlin's been able to do it the last couple of years, where he just gets these like JUCO or lower level guys, and they just end up being double machines. Janai Broom's one of them who just got named to a third-team All-American last week by the AP. You got Tucker DeVries at Drake. two-time, I believe, time.
He single manhanded Indiana State in the Missouri Valley.
What's that?
He single-handedly manhandled Indiana State in that Missouri Valley championship game. He's a phenomenal player. I'm sorry, keep going on the list. If you have any other players to name, but I thought about a question for you. I guess I'm not going to let you list any more players. I'm sorry, I'm being a terrible host, but this just popped.
I got too many anyway.
It's all good. I was shocked you didn't even mention like Keenan Blackshear or Jared Lucas. But
I thought it wasn't gonna. I thought Mountain West was off.
Oh so. No, anything's.
I got a couple I want to add once you're done with your questions.
No, go ahead, Jake, and then I'll ask.
Okay. Well, he obviously brought up one, and that was Shahada Wells for McNeese State. Guy's an absolute beast. And then he also brought up Enrique Freeman. That's the number one rebounder in all of college basketball for Akron. But the other guy that we haven't mentioned yet, and I think he's somebody to watch because I think this team could pull off a first-round upset, is Achor from Samford. This guy averages 15.8 points a game, 6 rebounds. They play a full court press the entire game. They play about 10 deep. They're playing in Salt Lake City against Kansas, who's going to be shorthanded. He shoots 60% from the field, 45% from 3, and he's a forward that stands at 6'9". So he's athletic just like Osabar is, except he has a better outside shot. I think that guy is somebody to watch this week. You'll remember that name, I think, when it comes down to Samford and Kansas in the first round.
That was leading me. That was a great segue. I couldn't have asked for anything better. I don't know if we're unanimous on this. And Nick, after we let you go, we might talk about some matchups here and stay on live. But because I'm a dad now too, so the three of us are dads here. So I want you to get to Pittsburgh safe. But anyway, shit ass dad joke. But I mean, if you had to pick one team for the hands down is going to upset them. I mean, I'm not trying to take the easy way out here. I think Kansas is not deep. I don't think we've heard anything on Hunter Dickinson. If you saw Bill Self yesterday when he announced Kevin McCullers wasn't going to play, it was like, yeah, he's not going to play. I don't know if he was playing poker there or showing his cards. It was very weird. But I would say Samford is going to beat Kansas. I think Samford is going to play on over the weekend. I wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, Samford can do it. I've just all year have kind of felt a little indifferent about them compared to everyone else because I don't think they have the size. But if Dickinson doesn't play, because McCullers already not playing, they have a very, very good chance there. I'm going to take a little homer pick here. I really do think Duquesne can win tomorrow. If Ali Khalifa doesn't play for BYU, that's a massive advantage. Duke's running about 10 guys. You're mentioning dad jokes or whatever. My dad called me at the beginning of this twice. He just sent me a text I glossed over it. It was about the Dukes. He's like, I just wanted to know if you're going to watch the game with us tomorrow because the Dukes play at 12:40. The first game's at 1:30. So I think I'm just going to be watching that somewhere on Duquesne's campus. Duquesne's campus is right next to the arena. So I'm really looking forward to that. If you want a little sleeper pick, though, 15, 16 seed to win a game, Western Kentucky. Steve Lutz is now 3 years in a row. He's had a team in the NCAA tournament. They had a really strong non-conference. No one could win on the road in the Conference USA. So they kind of dropped off a little bit there. But we've seen 15 seeds beat teams in the round of 64 from the Conference USA. We had Middle Tennessee a couple years ago. And if Tyler Kolek isn't healthy for Marquette, they have a real good chance there. They're experienced. They have a couple guys that played NCAA tournament games before. They're a great program. I wouldn't be shocked if Western Kentucky is able to hang in there or pull off an upset against Marquette.
Jacob knows how much I love the Hilltoppers. I can't name any of their players because we paid a little bit of attention to Conference USA because New Mexico State's about 3 hours south. We have a lot of Aggie alumni in the Albuquerque, Santa Fe metro area. I'll be honest, I can't name one Western Kentucky player, but I did bet on them a lot this year, and they were very profitable for me. What I do know about them is they are fast and they run and they score fast and they score in bunches. So I think that's what's key there. Nick, I know you're driving. I asked you for 45 minutes of your time, and we're working on that. Is there anything else you'd like to say? I know you've been big on New Mexico. That's not why we had you on, because we wanted to talk some mid-major basketball, and all of us are sitting here talking to you, our Lobos and not Gamecocks. But anything else to look for in this tournament other than I think the four of us are rather – I loved the games last time, man. I was amped. But any other final thoughts on the tournament before we let you go?
No, it's just the best 2 weeks of the season. I kind of think, I don't know if there'll be as many upsets as we've seen in the past. I mentioned Western Kentucky. I think Western Kentucky can do it. I think a couple double-digit seeds can make the second weekend, but I'm just not crazy confident. I don't think the slate on Friday is really all that fun to watch. I think a lot of the really good games are on Thursday, so buckle up. I mean, there's no better time of the year. There's no better week of the year. The 2 best days of the year are these next 2 days. So I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully we get a couple of mid-major upsets. There's a couple high major games I'm even looking forward to watching. The 6-11 games are going to be phenomenal. I'm excited to see NC State in person. Obviously Duquesne, obviously New Mexico. So best 2 days of the year are coming up, and I can't wait.
I lied. I have one final question because they were a Final Four team last year. FAU, what are your thoughts, and does Dusty May stay in that area in Miami? I would never leave there ever. But what are your thoughts on FAU? Were they seated properly? I thought it was a travesty. We were talking about teams that won their conferences outright. I thought it was a travesty that USF was left out. They went down to Orlando, or they went up to Orlando and beat the crap out of UCF last night. But before I let you go, just your thoughts on FAU and the whole situation there, and can they make another run?
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought FAU was kind of ranked a little bit high. I was getting text messages before from some FAU people that are like, I don't even know if we make the tournament at this point with all the upsets. They had some really vulnerable moments throughout the year, but they also showed, like, hey, in that Arizona win around Christmas, that they can be the real deal. And they're going to have to show that Arizona form. First of all, they got to shut down Boo Buie and they're on a 64. But if they're able to go on and play UConn in that second round, obviously UConn has been the best team in the country all year. That would show they're the real deal. And Dusty May, I've heard shopping around or whatever. I'm not too certain. I reached out to him about a Gradisson spot. We used to talk all the time. I think he's kind of focused on the season and maybe that other stuff. So who knows? But yeah, Louisville seems like a good option. There's maybe Florida State there if that's open. There's a chance. There's a really good chance that he gets another job. There's a lot of sitting high major coaches too that are shopping around after not so great seasons, but they've done it in the past. So I think this cycle could be absolutely crazy. If a couple jobs are going to open, we're going to see maybe an SEC coach leave their current job at a good school, maybe a Big 12 coach leaves their job at a good school. I'm obviously excited for the tournament, but the drama over these next 3 weeks, like, I didn't think Carmen Masciarello should have been fired. That's a complete sicko thing to say right now, talking about a 4-28 Siena team, their coach getting fired, but he never finished under 500. He won 2 league titles in 4 years. He's an alum. I think maybe it was more of a donor thing, because I know their fans weren't all too happy. They probably had a donor said, if you keep Carm around, I'm going to drop out. I'm not going to give you guys any more money. So I'm thinking that's what happened there. But it's going to be, this coaching changing cycle is going to be insane. And if Dusty May is able to beat UConn in the second round and pull off the win against Northwestern in the round of 64, the world's his oyster. He can get whatever the hell he wants this year. I really thought that Indiana should have been his job. I know they brought back Mike Woodson, but I thought they should have opened it up for Dusty May, because that's obviously where he wants to be. He's an alum. He was a manager there. So the world's his oyster if they're able to beat UConn, which would be a very, 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 very tall task.
I forgot who and said it. I think it was Rob Dowser or somebody, maybe John Fan, one of the guys on Field of 68. I forgot who. And they were like, yeah, I wouldn't want to see, if I am Dan Hurley and UConn, I do not want to see Dusty May's FAU in the second round. Like, that scares me. His name is Nick Lorensen. He's from Mid-Major Madness. Senor, we appreciate your time. And I know that many of the people listening, I always take a big fat dump on UNM, but we try to talk it objectively. I'm sure a lot of people were happy to hear that positivity. We will keep in contact, man. I hope you enjoy the games. Safe travels. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate it. I always love to hop on here, Ryan. Let's get a couple wins this weekend. Let's hope the Lobos can live up to our preseason expectations.
We will be in touch, dude. Join it. I still have to send you stickers. I got the flu twice over the last 4 months, and I've painted and I've redone a house and blah blah blah. I'm full of bullshit excuses, but hey, man, we'll be in touch. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.
We're gonna stay on live here, and glad that the phone hung up like that. We're real professional organization here. Neff, to you, I knew you'd love probably listen to Nick. Was there anything that he said that you took away that you loved? Because we watch college basketball. I'm getting the older I get worse with names, but I like what he's high on mid majors, man. It's got to make our those that listen to us love this, at least love him as a guest.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see somebody on, the East Coast or on the other side of the United States really enjoy mid-major basketball, since we fall under that category, and a lot of the mid-major conferences fall on the West Coast. So it's nice to it's refreshing to talk to somebody that has the knowledge that Nick does on those teams, even just all across the country. Lots of mid-major knowledge. You can tell he was spewing names off left and right from other teams, and obviously, I fall in that category too for my love of college basketball just in general. I wouldn't say I particularly have a forte like mid-major or anything like that. I just try and keep up with everything. But I could talk to somebody like Nick for hours. Just about players, teams, thoughts. So it was a great guest to have. And the one thing that I did love that he said is, some of his upset picks. There's logic behind a lot of these upset picks. You don't get to hear much of it when you watch these big shows because of the time constraints that they have, and everybody has to pick a bracket and not really give a full reason as to why. If they do, they talk about it for 20 seconds. But it's nice to be able to dig deep and talk about some of these teams and why they have the ability to do so.
Rick, I'm going to go to you here in a second and your thoughts. I want to thank our sponsors, though. If you are looking for a place to watch the Lobo game on Friday, again, tips at 110 against 6 seed Clemson, head over to Turquoise Desert Tap Room. It's only a few minutes away from the Santa Ana Star Casino. You can catch all the rest of the NCAA men's basketball action there. Some NBA, some NHL. Baseball is around the corner. The season actually started today. Side note, the MLB does a terrible job at promoting their product. Head over there for food, drinks, and sports. Turquoise Desert Tap Room also serves local brews on tap. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram at Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Hell, you could go place a couple of bets at the Santa Ana Star Casino. Then head over there and watch the games. And Abrazo Homes is Lobo owned and Lobo operated, and a proud supporter of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department and its student athletes. Join the movement and help Abrazo Homes build momentum by contributing to the 505 Sports Venture Foundation or the UNM Lobo Club. When you buy an Abrazo home, you become a part of the Abrazo family. Looking to build the perfect home in New Mexico? Find them at abrazohomes.com. And we want to thank Neil Wenderoth, everybody at Affordable Solar, for helping us out as well, too. Rick, just your thoughts. I know you had made the comment. I'm not putting you on the spot. You've watched more college basketball this season. You've watched more Mountain West Conference basketball this season than you had said in the past. I don't know if that was information overload, but I thought Nick was a great guest. And any other thoughts you had?
Yeah, no, he obviously is on top of his game and knows more than any human should know about small school basketball. But as Jacob and he were naming off some of these top players in the conference or in those smaller conferences, my mind can't help but start to wander to transfer portal thoughts, as we already see players starting to transfer out of bigger schools. And I'm just thinking to myself, and it's interesting, as the media at one point said they were all for players having the transfer portal, and now it seems like the media is saying, I can't believe this guy's transferring before the season is even over, and all of these things. And maybe that's why a lot of these teams are backing out of the NIT tournament to allow their players and coaches to already start the transfer process. But I'm just wondering, with all these players that are at the top of these smaller conferences, the chances of them getting scooped up by bigger, more prestigious schools is going to be a lot higher. And I'm just wondering if smaller schools are going to be able to consistently build a program up. Even last night, we see a school that obviously is going to have NIL issues like San Jose State. They lost two of their best players, Cardenas and Gorner, to the transfer portal. And if you're a school like that and you get two good players, and once they make it a few years in your program, they start averaging double digits, well, by the time they're a junior or senior, they see that as their ticket to leave. And I just see that as a long-term problem for some of these schools that don't have the luxury of being in a college town or having a strong fan base, is that these players that get a big name at a small school are probably going to leave the following season. And I'm just wondering the long-term effects that's going to have on the mid-major schools, also with the coaches probably getting tired of that, right? If you're Danny Sprinkle, do you want to do the same thing that you just did this year and have 12 new players every season? Well, a lot of coaches are going to be looking at similar situations in the, not this season, in the near future. And it's just kind of sad to see. I'm all for the players being able to pick and choose where they go, like coaches can do. But it's just going to be tough for some of these schools to ever build up their name again, I believe. And I just wondered if you guys had thoughts on that.
I know Jacob has something to say on that. I'll be honest, I didn't know who Dalton Connect was until this year. I mean, when I heard he transferred from Northern Colorado, I'm like, this kid can shoot. BT on this. Rick hit the nail on the head for NIL and transfer portal. Yeah, I agree with you. It's like one thing we think we have solved and we've created another problem. It's just not in college basketball. It's in a lot of other things around the world.
Just
and life.
one more quick thought. It makes me wonder if the Lobos would have went out in the second round, would we have already had some transfers? Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they would have wanted to play in the NIT. You look at last year; they could have given two shits against Utah Valley. I mean, Mark Madsen and his gang came on in and rolled UNM. I didn't think it helped that UNM didn't care, but I think Utah Valley would have won that game regardless. And then they got to the NIT Final Four. But yeah, no, you're probably right on that, Nick. But yeah, I was just gonna say, I didn't know who Dalton Connect was until this year, and he was at Northern Colorado and is now in the SEC Player of the Year. He's a first-team All-American. He's phenomenal to watch. He's a pure shooter. He has a huge range. He can hit a shot from just about anywhere on the court. He's impressive to watch. If you're probably a little bit more articulate in the portal and what Rick was saying, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think it I think it really hurts to open it this early. That's one thing. I think if they want to open the transfer portal, they should do it after the NCAA tournament. They should be encouraging these players to play in the tournaments that make college basketball what it is after the season. I know the NIT isn't, some kind of, it's not, a how do I want to put this? It's not something that you look forward to at the end of the year. Obviously, it's the lower class of teams that they didn't think should make the tournament. But the NIT is still a cool tournament. It's played at Madison Square Garden. It
Not
could
anymore.
provi-
Not anymore.
Oh yeah,
Last year
not
was
anymore.
Vegas.
Huh? It's last year in
Yeah,
Vegas. Yep. You're right. But it still does provide a platform for some of these guys to, show off if they want to transfer at the end of the year, give their last efforts to that team. And with NIL money being thrown around like, stripper dollars these days, you want these guys to play, and you're paying them to play. And it's starting to remind me a lot of the college football season. And that's super toxic because I think college football has lost a lot of its steam in the bowl game season, because you get to a game where you have 2 6-6 teams that are playing, but half the team's roster has already entered the transfer portal, and you don't get the true game of what that 6-6 team looks like, because now you're playing third string guys just to put a team out there and put yourself on TV and make a name for yourself, but you're not doing what what you should by having these guys out there to play for you. It does work in a good, sometimes it does work in the favor of some of these players, but most often, it's kind of a cop out for players to be like, okay, well, I didn't get to play very much over here. I'm going to put my name in the transfer portal ASAP. And, the thing is once one person starts, it's a waterfall effect for some of these teams. We saw it last night or in the last couple of days with the UNM women's team, right? It's like you just had a 20-win season, 20 plus win season, and now 7 of your players are already gone. So it's a total rebuild next year. Now, can they probably bring in people to at a place like this? Sure, but it's not ideal, and it's not what college basketball was meant for. College basketball was meant for recruiting players, developing them, and building your team off that. But in a case where like Dalton Connect got to transfer from Northern Colorado, he was way too talented for that conference. He definitely deserved to be somewhere where he could put his name in a spotlight, right? But then you go back and you look at kind of what the committee's doing to some of these teams, and it puts a bad light on some of these teams that are like mid majors or just under it, because you seed them so shittily. They sit there and look at, why would I want to go to that school? And even if I'm going to play a ton, because look what the rest of the country thinks about these types of teams, right? And then it hurts you because you get that perception of, well, man, we just had a really good season and we pulled off a 10 seed. I mean, they barely thought we should make the tournament. Why would I go to that conference? And that really is what's putting a damper on college sports these days. And I really wish that they would strongly consider at least having some other rules with transfers. I don't know if it has to be as harsh as it used to be, where you have to sit out a whole season before you can play and basically give up a year. But if they put something in parameter to limit the amount of transfers, I think it would be helpful. And then we can start seeing some of these teams grow from the bottom up, get their opportunity to become a strong team. So it's a topic that you could go on for days about. But it's really bad.
I don't mean to interrupt you there. You're looking at the polar opposite of what Dalton Connect did. Now, Javante Johnson was not of Dalton Connect's caliber, but he was somebody this year that I thought was a good role player last year with UNM, a wing player. I think he had some good perimeter shooting. Defensively, he's riding the bench at Colorado State. He didn't. I don't even think he got in last night when the Cowboys got in at the end of the game there for Colorado State. Which that guy with that mustache and like the mini mo, that was his pain. What did he say?
Pain. Yeah, pain. Yeah, he's bringing the pain. Yeah.
I wish it would have been a brick to my head, because that game was. I don't want to be like everybody else in America. That way, the Wagner Howard game ended. I mean, that ending was phenomenal. That to me is what March Madness is all about. I'm not trying to be cliche here, but like, lost my train of thought there. But yeah, like Javante Johnson.
What you're saying is, Ryan, is we rely on the committee to give us good basketball games in the tournament, and if you can't provide us good basketball games in the tournament, you're going to see lopsided wins like last night. That was a team that did not deserve to be in the tournament. I think a lot of the country knew that was the case. And that's what hurts March Madness in the end, because you give a team like that you say should make the tournament because they're third in the ACC, and you leave somebody out that took the outright conference title like Indiana State out of it. But that's the platform that Indiana State needs to be able to leverage their program. But if you let these mediocre Power 5 schools in and say they deserve it over them because people want to schedule them, or they have a better out of conference schedule, well, then it's just going to continue to be the same thing year over year.
Yeah, when you bring that up, like, for you and I and Nick, and Rick watched a lot of Mountain West Conference basketball this year and a lot of Lobos basketball. I said that sentence awkwardly, but anyway, I mean, for somebody, I think of Indiana State, I think of Ryan Cronwell, Isaiah Swope, Robbie Avila, if you watch them and how they played, they did themselves no justice by when they got that ranking, which was history this year for them. It was the first time they had been ranked in the AP Top 25 poll since 1979 in the days of Larry Bird. But they were fun to watch, and I knew they were pretty decent last year, but Jacob, you had reminded me that, hey, this Indiana State team is a lot of fun to watch. And I just don't know why it's almost, I don't want to compare it apples to apples and oranges. It's almost apples to apples and oranges to oranges between what the college football committee did, because you left out Florida State, who got waxed by Georgia. I don't know. I mean, I know you can't compare it because 12 players to 100 and whatever is different, but I think there's a little bit of that mentality. But I'm sure that Ryan Dunkid is on Virginia is an NBA caliber player. He plays fantastic defense. He might be one of their only players that can shoot on the team. If anybody that's watching knows different than I do, and Jacob, you might. But I think I don't want to go along with the same narrative of the rest of the country, but I completely think that the committee this year did get it wrong. I think USF belonged in. I think Indiana State belonged in. I'm not going to argue against, somebody like a Nebraska or a Texas A&M or a Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State is a whole hell of a lot better than Michigan State. I know Michigan, the point, they've got two good point guards, and then I don't know. It's Tom Izzo. Maybe they're trying to keep his streak alive. I don't know. I guess it's not Brock Lesnar and defeating the Undertaker, but I feel like normally never feel like that. And I think we felt it twice with the NCAA in the last 3 or 4 months between what happened to Florida State and what happened to, say, Indiana State, say John Seton Hall. I think Seton Hall and Shaheen Holloway, he has a history. Seton Hall has a history in the tournament. But I don't know. Rick, I'm going to throw it to you. If you have you can rebuttal that or agree with me or tell me I need to shut the F up.
No, I could definitely think Seton Hall deserved to be in after reading a little bit more the past few days. But yeah, I'm agreeing with what you say. Obviously, there's some teams that got at-large bids in conferences that had been historically strong, and they got the nod over teams in weaker conferences historically. So we just have to understand that going forward and not be disappointed until these other conferences prove something, right? I think the time for complaining and stuff is over. The games are set. The teams just have to deal with it now, and they have to put up or shut up. So next year, maybe they can get a line higher in the bracket. But I don't really want to talk about the seeding anymore.
Yeah, no, it's kind of it's kind of driven me out. Go ahead.
I got one more point to make about the conferences and the transfer portal too. The transfer portal is indicative to what's happening in conferences now too. You're literally eliminating big conferences. I mean, let's put this into perspective. The Pac-12 is highly regarded. It's highly regarded in football. It's highly regarded in basketball. That conference is completely decimated now because you've got all these teams that want to join these big conferences that get so much love. You're going to eventually have conferences with like 20 to 25 teams in them. Just think about how ridiculous that is. I mean, it's totally taking away what's going to happen when that happens. When you've got 25 teams in the freaking big, what are you going to call it? The Big 25 now instead of the Big 12? Like, what's going to happen when you have 25 teams in that conference and only one outright bid is given to that conference, and you're going to have to make the distinguish of giving them 14 at-large bids to get into the NCAA tournament? It's a joke. It's terrible for the game. It's terrible for the college scenery. But this is what they're forcing. And with the type of seeding and stuff that we've seen, this is why teams are doing it. I just saw last night Clemson, the ACC now. Florida State's trying to leave the ACC now. As soon as you screw your teams in your conference, they're like, I don't want to be here anymore. I'll go somewhere where they value me. And it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse like that. And eventually you're going to have like 4 or 5 conferences in all of college, and then it's just going to make it even worse for, oh, this team got screwed, because they obviously all can't play each other in conference play. So I just don't know if this situation's going to get any better for the foreseeable future.
One of the things I wanted to get your guys before we wrap up here, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on maybe some key matchups. Actually, talking basketball again, in the tournament starting tomorrow. I'm looking forward to Boise State and Colorado tonight. I think I think it has the potential of making a great game. I'm excited for Montana State. Jacob, we watched that tournament, the Big Sky tournament. I've fallen more in love with these smaller conferences. I love it. But nothing is thought the the UCLA volleyball team, and I know I'm wearing a Rutgers shirt. I'm just I'll use Maryland as an example. Like, nobody thinking about how this affects volleyball, softball, even baseball, Olympic sports. Now you have kids that are traveling from Los Angeles to Maryland, to New Jersey, to Penn State, College Park. Just I there's it's all. I'm not trying to sound like PC here, but it's like it's all lost. There was like some region to it. It was great. As we've got our last Pac-12 after dark for both basketball and football. That was something I loved. Thank God for Hawaii, Jacob. They'll still be there.
I think one idea someone has thrown out is just reconference the football teams and leave the other sports
Yeah.
to their own conferences and allow football or basketball to do their own thing. So these lower level sports, like you're mentioning, gymnastics, volleyball, softball, don't have to be affected by all these extra costs and travel. That's just one idea. I think Chip Kelly from now the Ohio State Buckeyes actually mentioned that.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. To some of the comments and those watching, hey, we've really appreciated you sticking us with an hour and 12 minutes, and we'll get back into actual basketball. We kind of went off on here on a tangent. College football conferences have been divorced from the rest of the sports into different conferences. One conference for football and a different. Yeah, that's what Rick just alluded to. New Mexico needs to drop football to the next lower level, be in Big Sky football. That's a different topic for a different time. My mom, somebody that I used to spend Christmas and Thanksgiving with, a family friend, does not like American football, and she can't understand why UNM still has a football program. It's because they're in a conference. They get the conference money. I mean, it's true. Other than probably us, I mean, I love college football and college basketball. Unless you went to Fresno State or UNM, you probably, or you have money on it in Vegas, you probably don't care about UNM or Fresno State at 1:00 on a Sunday morning on the East Coast, when the games starts at 8:00 or 7:00 Pacific time. That's not here nor there. I'm going to ask a very simple question to Jacob, and then Rick, and then we'll hit a little bit on the tournament. Aside from the Mountain West Conference, aside from other mid-major games, I can't wait for tomorrow at 10:00 our time, Mountain Time. The tournament is in full swing. Jacob, are there any other first round matchups that you like? I know Nick kind of attested to, some of the 6-10 games, but are there any first round matchup games that you're looking forward to in the tournament this year?
Yeah, first one that comes to mind is Oregon and South Carolina. I know that a lot of people are going to look at Oregon and be like, "Oh, this team was shaky all year." They haven't. Yeah, they have talent, and they also played a lot of their games without their center, Dante, and he is a force down low. Just to give you an idea, Oregon played Colorado two of their last or their last game of the season, and then they played them in the championship of the Pac-12. Um, Nafante Dali, Dante went 23 for 23 against Colorado in both games. He literally didn't miss a shot. He's a force to be reckoned with. They have some guards that can score the ball. They do struggle a little bit from shooting threes, but he is a force down low. South Carolina likes to play a slower paced game, so I think that favors Oregon to keep them into the game. I think that this is a kind of a stylistically stylistically a good game. The other one that I'm looking forward to is McNeese State and Gonzaga tomorrow. I know that a lot of people are high on McNeese State, but I've watched them exclusively this year. Will Wade's done a great job there. He doesn't deserve to be at McNeese State, but obviously he made some mistakes in his comments at LSU, which got him dropped down into that level. But he's got a very, very athletic team. I know that Gonzaga is a good team, but this team is very efficient on the offensive end. They force turnovers. They take good shots. They play good defense. They're very athletic. And to be honest with you, I think Gonzaga can struggle with their athleticism throughout the game. Just looking from a betting perspective, I would definitely look at taking the points with McNeese State. They're also a team that I think could beat Gonzaga outright. I know everybody's high on Gonzaga right now just because of their showing late in the season. But when you get a team that is athletic up against a team like Gonzaga, there is a couple of unathletic players on Gonzaga that will struggle with some of those matchups against a McNeese State. So tomorrow, those are my favorite two matchups, just looking at it from a perspective of what games should be the best.
I'm a sucker for kind of like a lot of these 6-10, 7-10, 6-11, 8-9 matchups. You kick off the full slate of the field of 64 with Michigan State and Mississippi State. There's some ties here in New Mexico with Chris Jans and what he was able to do at New Mexico State. We'll find out if Tom Izzo and that Michigan State team deserve to be in the tournament. I'm excited for that game. Nevada and Dayton are tomorrow. Dayton has a All-American, Holmes, right? Jacob is his last. I can't remember.
Duron Holmes. Yep,
Duron Holmes. Yeah, it's getting bad. Texas and Colorado State are tomorrow at 4:50 Mountain Time. Nevada and Dayton tip off at 2:30. I'm excited for that Oregon and South Carolina game. And if many people remember, or I forgot who Oregon beat, but they kicked off the season on True TV. They interrupted another rerun of Impractical Jokers back in November. And they'll be doing that.
I think it was Georgia. Georgia was their opening game.
Yeah, that's right. I'm excited to see what Illinois can do. I think the storyline with Long Beach State and the coach there, who was fired or basically parted ways on Monday, Dan Munson, he was basically let go on Monday before the Big West tournament started. He ripped off 3 in a row to win the Big West. They are now a 15 seed against Arizona. I'm sure Arizona doesn't want to see another 15 seed after getting beaten by Princeton last year. I don't know. There's a lot of good matchups. I will say this though. I think this bracket is harder to pick this year. I was really confident last year. But I just look at it and it's like, I don't know. I think a team that people need to watch out for is also Florida. Rick, I'll pass it over to you. Any thoughts with any other games that you're looking at that you're excited to watch?
Yeah, like we were discussing with Nick, this is probably my favorite 4 days or 2 days of the whole sporting year, maybe other than the Masters week coming up also. I can look back at my dad letting me enter his company pools when I was a young kid, and I was so excited to win a couple $100, to being in high school and having to print out brackets and starting my own pool and carrying those brackets around and tallying them up every night and letting the boys know where they stood. So truly love this time of year. Excited for it, but I'm really excited to see Keisei Tamanaga on Nebraska face off against A&M. If you see what this guy's doing, some of the shots he hits are just incredible. The step back, the dribbling skills. I guess his father was a professional basketball player who stands about 6'10", so we know where he gets his size from. But this guy's just unbelievable. Definitely worth the watch. And Nebraska also has our former Lobo, Josiah Alex. So I've never watched, I don't think, much Big Ten basketball or Nebraska this year, and I think they're favored by 1.5 against A&M, who A&M's kind of had an up and down season. So I think that'll be a good matchup. Nebraska, I don't think, has ever had a tournament win, so this would be really big for them. I'm looking forward to that game, and of course, just all our Mountain West matchups to see if Colorado can keep it going against Texas, and just all of them, man. I'll be watching them all at once, chatting along with you guys as we go. Oh, and one last thing. One last thing. If anyone's still by chance listening or listening in the future, Pit Press does have a bracket that Ryan put out there.
I just was going to say that.
$100 winner will also be competing with our official Pit Press bracket, where we put all our great minds together and see if you can defeat us. And if we somehow win, we will not keep the $100 and the gear. We will give it to someone more deserving than ourselves.
We won't be sleazy. We will give it to the top ranking position. It's kind of just going against us. Neff, I was going to ask you, because we've been talking about it for an hour and a half, and we'll get off here. We definitely want to preview UNM's matchup against Clemson. I don't think I asked you. I feel like Conan O'Brien doing this. Like there's something, well, I'm not as funny as Conan, or nor do I have his hair, but I was just thinking, like, when he used to meet with like a bunch of mascots, but did like the names of the players. I love Boo Booey at Northwestern. Keisei Tamanaga is great to watch. You have Alec with the Nebraska team is like a League of Nations. I think like it's a lot of different players. I don't know. It's a unique group. And then you have Fred Hoiberg, who obviously had success at Iowa State. He's done quite a job at Nebraska.
And I don't think Alec has cut his hair since he left the state. That thing is flowing and it is beautiful, people. So just tune in to see that beautiful
it's some sweet
head of hair, and to see his dad commenting on Twitter, which is also a great follow. Melvin Alec.
You know who we have to look forward to too? And I know he doesn't get playing time, and I know people, Lobo fans, think whatever. Sebastian Forsling's Dan, which I don't know how you pronounce your name. If he's listening, I'm sure he's not, but it's like BENGNT or something. Bent Forsling. He's a phenomenal account to follow. If you have not followed him, because he's up at like the ass crack of dawn watching Lobo games, and he's like, I got to go to work. And then he's driving in Sweden. He's driving through like, I don't know how much snow. It looks terrible, but
and then he'll just be having this magnificent vacation the next day. He's on board, man. I give him credit for staying. I don't know if I would stay up that late to watch my son doing what he's doing, but he's all in on the team, so I love it.
And probably one of the nicer people too. And it says a lot about Sebastian too, because if you've heard any of the stories recently about how good of friends Jamal and Sebastian are, the Mashburns have basically adopted Sebastian Forsling here in the United States. He attends all their holiday get-togethers, everything like that. It says a lot about him. He's always got a great attitude, even though Sebastian has lacked some minutes. He's one of the first people. You always look over at the UNM bench and you see that guy into the game. So that's the type of teammate that you want to have in college basketball. That's just there for the team and the success that they're having on the court. So good for him.
Not to mention, I thought it was crazy that he was the first one. Well, it wasn't crazy. I mean, he's a vet on the team. He was carrying the trophy down the escalator at the airport. Sunport. Don't want to get in trouble for that. I'm going to read this. Francisco Chavez from one of our listeners. Appreciate you guys doing the show. Really rooting for the Mountain West Conference this year. I know it won't happen, but I want to see all 6 teams in the Sweet 16 and really make some noise. Haha, Lobos versus Alvord 3. Yeah, I don't think anybody talked about this. There's a possibility that Nevada and UNM could play in the Sweet 16 in Los Angeles. That would be something. And I'm still convinced that if this team made it to the Elite 8, I mean, we've all kind of made that joke, but saying it out loud now, like the city would probably burn to the ground. And another thing is you've probably always, I wonder what Snake's doing, and I wonder how Snake is getting to Memphis. Snake seems like a real, he might enjoy Bill Street way too much. I've been there. It's awesome. I'm sure one of the most famous Lobo fans on Twitter is at Lobo Gabe. Somebody mentioned that they might try to get him to Memphis. I would say we could start a GoFundMe if the Lobos get to the Sweet 16 to get him to Los Angeles for the Sweet 16 and a potential Elite Eight matchup. I'm just throwing that out there. All right, we've been on for about an hour and a half. Kind of didn't take a break there. Rick, Tom, this is like our fourth or fifth live show, and now we're doing it in the middle of the day. Again, want to thank our sponsors, Affordable Solar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room. If you're looking for a place to watch the game, Turquoise Desert Tap Room, head over there. It's only a minute away from the Santa Ana Star Casino and Abrazo Homes. Mackenzie Bishop with the Lobo Club there. We appreciate them. Hey, Rick, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
And Jacob Neff, you can follow Rick at rthompson1050. You can follow Jacob at NM Sports Capper. Jacob, thank you for joining us. I'm sure you really appreciated talking that today.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
And can't wait to text you guys all day for the next 4 days. I might be obnoxious because this is like me waking up at Christmas as a kid at 6 a.m. to go open up your presents. So I may be overloading the comment section, but so excited for these next 4 days. It's definitely my favorite out of any sporting event ever. So can't wait.
It started to trump, no pun intended there, Trump Super Bowl Sunday. I don't, as much as I love opening day of baseball, I think, yeah, it's Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, New Year all rolled into one. We want to thank Nick Lorensen, who was on his way to Pittsburgh for that site of the first and second round. We really appreciate him. I thought it was funny. He was getting into it with Rico Bosco, Rick. If you pay any attention to the Barstool guys, that was funny. I'm glad he brought that up. He's a plethora full of knowledge. We'll have him on again. You can follow him at mid_madness. He's got a lot of followers. It's affiliated with SB Nation. My name is Ryan Tamori on behalf of Eric Malton, Ed Nunez, and Nick Nunez as well. Rick Thompson, Jacob Neff. We still discussing what we might want to do. Maybe do a live show post day tomorrow night. Obviously doing something leading up to the Lobo game and post Lobo game. Again, they play Clemson in Memphis, Tennessee. I might have to start listening to Paul Simon's Graceland to get me amped for that game. Great album.
Or 3-6 Mafia.
Thank you. I was trying to think of something else. Are they from Memphis? I'm taking a guess they are.
Yes.
Kobe Bryant from the Lakers.
That's paper.
That's paper. Thank you, Juicy J. We appreciate everybody listening. Again, Clemson, UNM, 1:00 Mountain Time, 1:10 Mountain Time, pending any changes on Friday on True TV. You can always listen on the Lobo Radio Network with Rob Portnoy and Hunter Green on the call. My name's Ryan Tamori. For the people that listen and the people that commented, thank you very much. Hey, everybody have a great day. Enjoy the basketball.
Join the bracket.